Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L, and now let's talk some Fire Force. This time specifically we're talking differences, that is, the differences coming from episode 2 compared to chapters 2, 3, and 4 of the Fire Force manga. My god. Anyway, let me tell ya, this time around the changes are really interesting. So episode 2 of Fire Force was really somber. The episode focused aggressively on using wide shots that lingered around and made very good use of silence to really build the atmosphere and deliver messages. That was entirely the choice of the anime adaptation, and man, I'd say that's the mark of a brilliant adaptation. Regardless, the changes all stem from this choice of direction, and this time they even skipped over a flashback because it probably would have ruined the atmosphere. If I was to guess why they did it, I'd go with that. Now, just to remind you, this is a trivia video that largely focuses on small details. So let's not complain about nitpicking, it's the nature of the video. Anyway, sit back, relax, and let's just jump right into it. So first, I want to highlight this scene just to show how the episode in general expanded material. And just to make sure, note, this style of expansion happened in many spots throughout the episode. I'm not going to talk about them all, but I'm just going to highlight this one. This scene was adapted from this page. Notice how much more concise the page itself is. The anime added the mood entirely, with the page giving you context on Shinra's location and the flashback, and the anime filling everything else in. Now we're moving away from that and going into more legit changes. The next change is minor, but it really added spunk to the episode. Check this panel out. Here's how the anime adapted it. Absolutely love how they made this feel more dynamic with Shinra going to the camera. Next change was an expansionary one. This scene with the sister does not occur in the manga, however it is tied to the girl's backstory. Pretty neat addition, because the endings already spoiled it, that she has a backstory worth diving into. It's just cool to see it getting a nod here. The next change is an omitted flashback, pretty much a panel from Arthur and Shinra's school days. This panel just serves to give some context to the chat, and then from there we have a presentation change where Shinra and Arthur knock on the fourth wall when they're arguing with each other. Following from there is a missing moment. In the manga, after the sister compliments Shinra and tells him he's cool, the anime puts more focus on Shinra blushing, whereas the manga has Shinra getting reminded of his mother, to which Arthur makes a comment somewhere around the lines of Shinra having an Oedipus complex. This implied that Arthur knew about Shinra's mother being a motivation for him, which further implies that Arthur knows Shinra relatively well. We kinda lose that in the anime, although you could say maybe that is added in with the final scene of the anime. The next minor change is one revolving around comedy, another example of a good adaptation in my mind. Here's the page in the manga and here is the shot in the anime. Completely different comedic timing and sequence. Also, note the caution tape. This was used as a visual gag later on that was not present in the manga. The next change is on this page in the manga. The way it was adapted made it so we lost Shinra's inner thoughts, which would have indicated some arrogance from Shinra, and we missed Shinra getting nervous from Maki stripping down. Before moving on though, I want to note that Shinra's inner thoughts were largely missing from other spots of the chapter 2 content. Anyway, this leads us to an actually bigger exposition loss, specifically this page which talks about the original 3 factions people were originally recruited from: the Fire Defense Agency, the Church, and the Army, with the final lost bit of info being that Maki wasn't the only soldier in Company 8. The next change is actually this extremely large chunk of text that explains Arthur's plasma cutter. It got moved to the equipment loadout scene later in the episode. I felt this was an appropriate change because it just kept the pacing for the fight in general. The next thing we lose out on is Shinra's inner thoughts. Again, really interesting that they chose silence for the same shot. And then also we're missing his thoughts on Maki. What's interesting though is that we got Shinra's inner thoughts back once we crossed into the chapter 3 content. And that's where we're going. We're moving into the chapter 3 content now. The first new change here is the actual detail of the equipment. The anime gave us names, the manga just gave us the background. The next change is a kind of big omission, specifically 2 pages of the young daughter's encounter with her father. The anime skipped these 2 pages. And what's scariest about the second page is that the fire human actually spoke to his daughter. but more on that later. The next change comes right around here. The anime skipped something. In the manga we had a panel of everyone addressing why Arthur doesn't have a helmet. So I think this was just removed because, again, they wanted to maintain the atmosphere and reduce the comedy. The next omission comes from this exchange with the regular firefighters in the manga. These firefighters gave us context and gave the crew the deets on the situation with the fire human on the chair. This was most likely omitted to keep the twist a surprise, that twist being a peaceful fire human. Now the next one is a very interesting omission. That is, they didn't have Obi vocalize that they are actually killing the fire humans. And this one is cool because in the anime, the atmosphere and the use of colors and the people's facial reactions perfectly conveys the idea of what Obi was saying. So this was an example of silence speaking louder than words. The next change comes from the moment the fire explodes due to this individual. So there's a few things going on here. First, you may not have noticed, but the flame was mimicking the face of the guy using it. And secondly, the crew thought Maki was the one doing it, especially after seeing the tongue sticking out. The comedic element was most likely removed because, again, it would have ruined the mood. The next change now is the biggest removal in the episode, one that I imagine might be repurposed in another episode. It's this page that shows the mysterious man talking about the powder with another man. This was also the first page of chapter 4. After that, the next change is another omitted page when the group first enters the house. My guess why they omitted this is because it just reiterates info that the manga gave, info that the anime also chose not to give, so why actually give it time if those information bits weren't active? So, makes sense. The next change from there is that they removed the part where the flame human welcomed the company. Followed by that, we have another interesting change. So according to the fan translation, Obi used Arthur's name to give the order. In the anime, he specifically uses Arthur's number. If translations are correct, I think this was a change made to accentuate the fact that they are acting as their role instead of as themselves. Personal desires cannot come before the responsibility as firefighters. This distinction is later observed with Arthur, who puts his role as a firefighter ahead of his knightly pride, represented by him putting away Excalibur. So I thought this was just really cool. The next change was one that most likely came as a reflection of the mood. Arthur places his extinguished hilt onto the back of the chair in the anime, whereas Arthur stabs in a full motion in the manga, with the final missing thing in the scene being the infernal speaking. It's really strange that they chose to remove it speaking. And the only thing that I can really come up with is that maybe the anime didn't want to make this particular flame human seem special, but I really don't know, because this would have just added more doubt to the firefighters at this point. So it's kind of interesting to think about. Anyway, the final scene of this episode isn't in any of the 3 chapters that I was looking at. I don't know if it's from a special bonus chapter or if it's anime original, but just know that at least for chapters 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, it does not appear there. That said, I think this scene just serves to end off the episode nicely while showing that Shinra and Arthur get along and that Arthur is ultimately nice to Shinra. Anyway, what you have with this episode is that the direction towards atmosphere and mood largely changed how scenes were presented. And also you have the episode, I think, downplaying the bigger plot elements of Fire Force and trying to make this more standalone. This is evident in the removal of the extra villain scene and the removal of the fire human talking. But they will most likely bring it up in another episode, I would assume. Anyway, let me know what you thought down below. That's it for me. Hope you enjoyed this wonderful little bit of trivia, and let me know if I missed anything. I don't think I did, but if I did, let me know. Anyway, till next time, I hope you have an absolutely great day. Oh, and let me know what kind of Fire Force videos you would like to see on the channel, and I will see if I can get them done. Maybe once every 3 weeks.